Superior civil engineering solutions and advice to developers, local government and service authorities across Australia. Lanco Group is known for delivering sustainable, efficient solutions. By working closely with clients, Lanco Group is able to meet the complex infrastructure requirements for residential, commercial and industrial developments on time, on budget. Find out more at lancogroup.com.au. Lanco Group, your business partner for engineering solutions.
Are you looking to change your destiny in life? Be your own boss? Start your own business? If you are, you need people who understand your needs and are committed to helping you make it happen. At DKP & Co Chartered Accountants, we are more than just accountants. We are business advisors, taxation consultants and strategists that specialise in setting up businesses. We understand the client and give them the very best customised advice and strategies to achieve their goals. Visit our website dkpco.com.au or give us a call today on 03 9023 9370. Fast, proactive, personal. That's DKP & Co Chartered Accountants.
Everybody, and welcome to the grand final edition of the NPL Victoria Pod here on FNR Football Nation Radio. And Nick Lachie and Lachie Flanagan here after what has been, it's only Tuesday, but it's felt like a week.
You know that meme where it's, God, what is it? Is it Tintin?
Yeah.
You see where he's like, the captain's like, gee, what a week. And it's like, Captain, it's Wednesday.
It's Wednesday. Well, it's only Tuesday.
Not even in our case.
And it has been a massive week over the last, well, not massive week, it's been a massive few days, that, as we said, has felt like a week here in
just the last 24 hours was enough. That's not even talking about the weekend of semi-finals.
Absolutely. So we're going to cover everything off. We've decided to go 2 hours today to ensure that we can cover off everything from the grand final this weekend between South Melbourne and Oakleigh.
Semi-finals
last week. To then the venue decision, which we'll talk about off the top, to the gold medal night last night, to the fact that two coaches have been sacked at both Bentley and Altona Magic.
The merry-go-round has started and the season hasn't even finished.
Yes, with Nick Tolios and Savas Patikas obviously both been sacked from their respective coaching positions in the last 24 hours.
Well, sorry, Nick, I'm going to correct you there on your choice of words. Bentley have decided to go to market.
And they've literally put
this
applications
little piggy,
out.
They've decided to go to market.
And they've literally today put out an application process for how to basically, if you want to apply and you have your A license, they're going full time with the manager as well. So they're really handing the keys to whoever it's going to be. But anyways, guys, thank you so much for anyone that's joining here on Facebook, Twitch, Twitter, on the FNR app. We're sorry we're a little bit late today as well, but today, obviously on the show as well, we'll be joined by Brad Norton from South Melbourne and Matt Fischini as well. It's almost the fullbacks hour.
I think it's fair to say, Nick, this edition of the NPL Victoria podcast, we've had some big ones over the admittedly short stretch, the short lifespan, but it's as big an NPL Victoria podcast as we've ever seen. I'm sorry, it is. And I think it where the magnitude of was perhaps too big for the old streaming PC to handle, but we are back, we are live, we're ready to go, Nick.
Well, let's get into it. Let's start off with the grand final venue. Now, yesterday, Football Victoria announced that the doubleheader grand final, NPLW grand final, and of course the NPL Men's Victoria grand final between Calder and Bulleen Lions and South Melbourne and Oakleigh would take place at City Vista Recreation Reserve in Caroline Springs. As you can imagine, it was met with intense backlash from all corners of the footballing public, not just in Victoria, but really around the country, as a decision to host these two games at a much smaller and less accessible venue we're talking the other side of town for South Melbourne fans, for Oakleigh fans, for football fans. Caroline Springs is quite the journey for football fans coming from that part of town.
From where these clubs are
based. And as well, considering where previous grand finals have been hosted, this last set of grand finals pre-COVID, this is the first lot of grand finals since 2019, were obviously at Amy Park when they used to have the triple headers with the promotion relegation playoff between NPL 1 and NPL 2.
RIP.
And there's also been grand finals at Lakeside in the past, stretching all the way back. But FE went with the decision to take it out to literally take it well out west to City Vista. As Joey Lynch kind of spoiled on Twitter, we did reach out to Football Victoria today and gave them the opportunity to come on the show today and basically explain the decision-making process behind choosing City Vista. Because again, as we said yesterday, it was met with a lot of backlash from all corners of the footballing public. In regards to it, and we'll get into why it really did in just a second, not just from the venue, like everything else, but Football Victoria. We put the call out, and in the end, we didn't get the response, obviously, to get someone on today. So we do apologise. We weren't able to get someone on to kind of explain their side of it, but the call was made. In the end, if anyone obviously is here today and wants to jump on the show and have their say. Unfortunately, our talkback lines are down, but you can drop your Facebook comments in below as well with comments on Twitch, on Twitter. Just one more thing as well. But of course, we're doing a bit of a first, a bit of a new thing here. We've got what I've tried to coin with a bit of a, tried to think, how can we call this? What can we call it, Lachie? A Zoom back. So we've dropped the Zoom link. And we've said, if you want to join, you want to have your face here on the show and you want to have your say, you don't have to have your face. You can have your audio only and have your say regarding the grand final decision. You want to talk about the actual game. You want to talk about the gold medal night. You want to talk about Bentley's decisions and Altona's decision to part ways with their managers, or really anything to do with NPL Victoria. Well, feel free to click on the link. It's all there. We'll pass you through to our producers at the back. They'll have a chat and we'll get you on and we'll have a bit of you have your say. Because what we've heard is that radio stations around the country have been bombarded with people wanting to talk about the NPL Victoria Grand Final.
Look, Nick, we're already off to a pretty hot start. Mark Borich coming through on the live stream over on Twitter, and he says, if Bentley have gone to market, does that mean they are over the road at DFO looking for their new coach? I don't know who works at DFO, what their coaching backgrounds are, but it's a good question.
No, absolutely. Well, we will start off with the venue decision. Then we'll go into Bentley Greens and Altona's decisions to part with their respective managers. So let's go. Let's start off with it. When I saw the news, Lachie, I'm not going to lie, I was a bit shocked that they went with City Vista in the end. We heard rumbles about it could have been at City Vista, but it was kind of like, really? For those that don't know the City Vista complex, it is a very small complex. Again, great facilities for obviously a smaller club, for the Caroline Springs, George Cross, who obviously got me. United were based out there and training out there before they moved to the hangar. But
they're in NPL 3.
Yeah, the NPL 3s were playing there as well. But the decision to take a game, the biggest game of the season there, for both respective leagues, with a ground that only caters to 283 seated people only, baffles me. Absolutely baffles me. There are a plethora of grounds that could probably accommodate for this a lot better. In regards to, we saw Pavel Yusuf on Twitter speaking about it, that Knights Stadium was there and ready to go. That seat's about 7,000.
Knights was offered to Football Victoria.
Yep. Knights was there. We've seen, obviously, Lakeside, but obviously there was potentially, probably a bit of a I don't even want to say conflict of interest, but there might be to an extent because it is South Melbourne's home ground that they could have played there. Amy Park wasn't in the running. Obviously from previous years, they didn't go as well to Valley Park Events Centre. Obviously could have taken it to what was formerly known as ABD Stadium. But in the end, they went to Caroline Springs and they're taking it to a ground that, as we said, can only sit comfortably 283 people instead of grounds that can cater for up to 6,000 to 7,000 people, which we saw in 2016. 6,000 to 7,000 people came in and watched South Melbourne and Oakleigh in that same grand final. It's not to say there will be 6,000 to 7,000 people at this game, but there is certainly going to be a lot more than 283 people coming to the game on Sunday. And I think there'd be a lot of people that would be also turned off from coming all the way to Caroline Springs because for these sets of fans, it is a long, long trek.
And look, don't get me wrong. I do think that Georgie is a really It's a good facility. It's an excellent facility.
Absolutely, we're not doubting that at all.
And Georgies are one of the clubs who are in the conversation for being part of the national second division. I'd actually be very supportive of their facility, the bistro they've got available to them, the fact they've got 2 pitches there. There's a lot of really, really good stuff about that facility. And if there was a team from the West, if Melbourne Knights say they didn't have their own stadium, or Altona or St Albans had qualified for the grand final and they were looking for an elite venue that they could use for something like this, I would have
bombs whatsoever.
Not a single problem. And I think the issue is more with the fact that we are used to, I guess, in Victoria, having a grand final that is played in a central location, but the fact that these are one team from the southeast and one team from south of the CBD, and as well the fact that these two sides did really sort of struggle, and it does make you wonder why, disregarding the suitability of Georgie's as a venue or otherwise. This is not the first time these two sides have met in a grand final.
We just, 2016, wasn't it?
6 years ago. It wasn't that many grand finals ago that, as you said, 6,000 or 7,000 people were there. It was the same teams, different players on both sides, of course, different situation, but it was the same teams. They played at Lakeside. You know who else played at Lakeside? The year before. Look, if you're an Oakleigh fan or you're an Oakleigh player, I understand you consternation.
You might have some...
Your opposition.
Yeah.
It's natural. It's like when it's like when non-Victorian teams come to play at the MCG in the grand final.
You have the same things with the A-League men's, even A-League women's, when they have to play obviously the home team, but also they earn that right as well.
What I would say to this as well, and I spoke to someone who's a member of Southie who reminded me of this fact, not only have these two sides, and this is, like I said, the bit that really gets me, these two sides have played the grand final at Lakeside there and done it without a problem. Yes, that result went the way of South. What happened the year before that, Nick? They played at Lakeside. Yep. It was Bentley Greens against South Melbourne. Bentley Greens won the grand final.
Yeah.
Bentley Greens won the grand final. And South is a location where it's very central. It's easy for supporters of these two clubs to get to. And it just wouldn't have, I think, nearly as much ill will as perhaps moving the first grand final, let's not forget as well, the first grand final in 2 years away from the heartlands of these clubs, away from the central venues that we are used to. I think that's where the fundamental opposition to this decision really lies. And I think on those grounds alone, it's very justifiable to be asking questions.
Absolutely. And I think the big thing is as well, we spoke about, it's the seating part of it. It's the accessibility. We had Taryn Heddo just before the show tweet to us saying, can you guys please chat about the accessibility? Just getting the full thing up. So please talk about the accessibility re the grand final. Makes me very hesitant to go, knowing that it will be tough to get a seat and there'll be many more in that boat. And there are so many people in that boat, because you've got to think about, accessibility for disabled, for older people, for kids as well. They're not going to want to stand for 2 hours plus if they've come for both grand finals, if they've come for a day out at the football. But also the other thing, Lachie, is, now this is a thing I think that people might have forgotten. If someone said this on social media, please do, forgive me if I bring this up. I don't have an issue with it being at Lakeside if it was to be there, because I think South Melbourne have earned that right. If you finish first, you should be able to host the grand final on your home deck. I think that is totally fair enough. That's, I think, a totally fair enough reason for South Melbourne to get. It's extra incentive because it's on your home deck. You finished first, for God's sake. So you should have that opportunity to say, I want to host it on our home deck.
And again, I would understand the opposition had the precedent not already been set in previous years that the grand final is okay to be played there. And in years where South have finished in the top end of the table. That's the bit I find weird, is that sort of backflip. What's changed between now and then that suddenly in 2022, the year of our Lord, Oakleigh and South Melbourne playing at Lakeside is now a problem when it wasn't before? What has happened between 2016 and 2022? Same clubs, different players, like I said, that it makes it no longer feasible to play there. And one thing I do want to stress, which I don't want to get sort of lost in all of this. It's not just an NPL men's grand final being played here. We've got the NPLW grand final. And the important reason, and one of the reasons that's been put to me as to why a venue, and again, I'm not having an opinion one way or another here, I'm just stating what has been told to me, is that one of the reasons that Knights wasn't considered or used as a venue is because you need to have separate changing rooms for the men's and the women's grand final. Now, once you add that in as a caveat, and rightly so, I think that's a justifiable thing. If you could time the grand final slightly differently, you could not have a double header, so
separately.
The best possible venue in terms of seating and all that sort of can be used. Those are different questions, and we can talk about that. But that is the reason. So Knights couldn't be used because it doesn't have the availability for both men's and women's change rooms at the same time at the venue. That's the reason. Whether it's right or wrong, you can make your own mind up.
And also, to add to that, Georgies do have the 4 change rooms.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so that is one strength of Georgies, that they are a facility that do have that available to them. And I think that's worth making absolutely clear as to why, Knights have lost out for that reason. But yeah, the seating thing, like, we're making this decision to play at Georgies to be considerate and mindful of what the right thing to do, which is to allow separate changing rooms for different genders. That's completely fine. But by facilitating that request, but doing it in a way that allows reduced seating capacity, well, how, are we also not being considerate of other people who might find it difficult to attend if there isn't a seat for them at the grand final? It might be prohibitive for them, for example. You've got to kind of look at it on both sides of the coin. And I think, if your logic for denying one grand final venue is that, well, we have to cater to everyone, and I agree that is a reasoning you should do, well, then actually you have to cater for everyone. And it's not just men and women, it's men, women who are able-bodied, who are disabled. You have to factor everyone in.
Absolutely.
And if that's the case, then, and you're not going to play it at Amy, because the NRL has got that booked and has already had that booked, I believe, for a while. Lakeside feels like, for me, feels like the obvious choice. It caters, if you really want to cater for everyone, Lakeside is a ground under your parameters of having a double header that caters for everyone.
It ticks every box, except it frustrates a corner that say, well, we don't want to play at South Melbourne's home ground. But as I said, Lachie, this is the thing, right? Like, if they're going to use the home ground advantage thing, it's still kind of redundant, because as you said, the precedent has been set, but South Melbourne have also earned the right. They've earned the right to host it for the men's grand final. For the women's grand final, it's still a neutral ground. It's still Calder and Bulleen at Lakeside. There's no sort of shenanigans going on with having that game there. It fits every little bit of criteria. You've got the social room. You've got the facilities for fans. You've got 2 big grandstands available. You've got standing room available. You've got the change rooms. You've got the pitch. You've got the parking as well. The accessibility by public transport as well is a big thing. You can get on a tram and you basically get dropped off right outside the ground. It's not like it's hard to get to at all in the slightest. And it makes for a good day out at the football. But also, you've got to take into consideration the other thing that will irk some people as well, is you look at the weather that's going to be on Sunday. It's going to be raining. It's going to be cold. Fans aren't going to want to stand out in the cold all day if they haven't got a seat under cover. At Lakeside, majority of those seats are undercover.
Yeah, I mean, they are exposed to the wind.
No, I know, but still, Lachie, rain is different.
It's not the same.
It still is a deterrent. This is what you got to weigh up in everything. And for a grand final, there's a reason why it's called a bloody grand final. It's grand. You played at the best possible venue you can get it at. You don't lowball it. You want to play it at the best possible ground. We get the most amount of people in to make it the biggest spectacle possible. This is your showpiece event, and your first showpiece event in 3 years. This is and we spoke to Matt Fischini earlier today. This was a pre-recorded interview, and even he said it. This is this is the first grand final since COVID. And we're limiting the amount of people that can come in, where you will get, not just because I saw some people on Twitter today saying, South haven't been getting big crowds. They're not going to get anywhere near that. People underestimate the power of the theatre goer as well, because there'll be a lot of pockets of fans that will want to go because it's a grand final. People want to go because it's a hot ticket. People will say, yeah, look, you know what, I want to go and I want to spend my Sunday at the football. You know, it's not clashing with anything else at that point. You know, there's no AFL finals. There's no other sort of sport that's really going on at that point. Off the top of my head, if there is, please do tell me. But at the same time, it's a big opportunity that I think they've missed here. And look, this is not a knock on Georgie's facilities as a whole, because as we said, Lachie, it is a great facility, but for a grand final, I don't think this was the right decision at all. Now, now look, I don't know if it's too late to change it, but this is going to be met with, I think, the backlash is not just going to go away overnight in regards to this. And it is really, really disappointing, I think personally, that we're not playing this at the best possible venue. And I think that we should be. For me, that's the logic. And if you can get 4 change rooms, you can go double header, I think you got to go with it.
I think as well is that I think in some way City Vista is an unfortunate victim not of being an adequate or, you know, up to code facility. It's just been redone. I'm telling you, it's a very good venue.
Absolutely.
But it's more a victim of not being Lakeside or not being Amy Park. And the other thing that I can't shake, Nick, and I know that different elements go into play of making any decision where you play a final. There's lots of stuff that goes into all of this. And look, I think, and it's easy for us to say on this podcast, the NPL Victoria, of the NPLs around the country, probably the strongest. Maybe
Absolutely.
New South Wales is a competitor.
Yeah.
Queensland, you know, we take a lot of the players from there, but they're strong NPL. Don't get me wrong.
Absolutely.
What have other NPLs done this season? What have they done?
Well, NPL New South Wales played
NPL New
at
South
Bank
Wales
West.
had theirs at Bank West. NPL SA, they're going to be playing their grand final this Friday night, if memory
Is it
serves
at
me correctly.
Service
It's at
FM?
Service
Yeah.
FM, which is a state football centre with its own purpose-built grandstand. It will have more than enough people. There might be some overflow, but it will have plenty of seats
And
for those who need it.
And if you haven't seen it, if you watch the Australia Cup, that is Adelaide City, Adelaide United game, that's where the game was at. So if you
And
want,
it
it looked great on TV.
Yeah.
So
Georgie's is a great ground, but is it at a semi-professional level? Is it our premier Victorian footballing ground? I don't think it is. And other states have made different decisions. And I know it's easier when you've got a neutral stadium you can use and all that sort of stuff. But Lakeside, if you take away Amy Park, and no disrespect to the other NPL venues, but Lakeside at a semi-professional level, it is the premier footballing venue.
Absolutely.
It's the premier footballing venue outside of an A-League stadium.
yeah, it is. It's an
I don't
elite
know
sporting
what you need
facility.
to say.
It's the number one thing about it all. It's an elite sporting facility. It's the home of Victorian athletics. It's the home of South Melbourne. It's been used for so many big events for such a long time. They've got everything you need there. It just look, it's like shouting into an echo chamber. We can go on all day about it.
But also, is there, you know, also do we, you know, if the 4 change rooms is a problem, do we need to lump both grand finals into one?
No,
Can we have separate days?
I think we can have separate days. We had the pro roll playoffs separate. We took that away from it.
And they were separate things today. This season, sorry.
Why can't we have the women's grand final on a Saturday and the men's grand final on a Sunday? Or the women's grand final at a different venue earlier in the day on the Sunday and the men's at a different venue on the Sunday?
And to be clear, I'm not opposed to the double header necessarily, but if your circumstances change, if you've got certain parameters that you have to fit, well then maybe if you can't change the requirements, then maybe you have to change the format.
Yeah, absolutely. Why
Maybe.
couldn't they play one at Knight Stadium and one at ABD or Valley Park Events Centre? Why couldn't they do that? Why couldn't it be Saturday afternoon for the girls, Sunday afternoon for the boys? Why couldn't it just be you get as many people possible to it?
Or if that wasn't feasible, then choose the best ground for everyone. And respectfully, Lakeside, other than Amy Park, the ultimate ideal, but with far more prohibitive costs than alternative venues, was the ideal. It was the
Absolutely. Just having a look at some of the comments here, Lachie, Alan McCormack coming through saying, can you ask FE how they expect old people and kids to stand around for 2 hours? Well, that's sort of the thing we posed, is that obviously not having enough seats is going to leave some people forced to stand around, or I don't know if you can bring your own chair, but still, it's not necessarily ideal. I don't know if you can bring in a bloody deck chair into the ground, but it's not ideal for anyone. We've had as well Mark Sultana come through, say the game is for everyone. We have held big games there, and again,
and they have had Western United there before.
And Western United played friendlies there and everything. Not discounting that. We've already said our bit about what we think about why we think the game should be at potentially a different venue. And we're not discounting George's in any sense.
But then also those are also...
It's the seeding.
It's the seeding. It's... with all due respect, I think the size, or at least we hope the size of the NPL Victoria Grand Final will be larger than a Western United friendly. Will probably, hopefully, be larger than an A-League women's game as well. Again, perfectly fine and perfectly good venue for those things to be occurring in. But those are regular season games. They're pre-season games. This is the grand final. Like you hear people go on about it. It's the showpiece. It's the showpiece event. And again, it comes back to my earlier point. If this is the premier event, if this is the culmination of not just this season, but of the seasons that we've missed out on, is Georgie's the premier venue in the state?
Absolutely.
As good of a venue as it is, and I have been there, I don't think it's the premier venue in the state. And I think most people would agree with that.
It's the fact that every other year this has been we've spoken about Amy Park and obviously that being off limits, but Lakeside then being the second best and it not being used. And I think you could rattle off a few others that are ahead of that. And as we said, we understand the 4 change rooms and everything like that, but that's where you have to be flexible. I mean, if COVID taught us anything, Lachie, over the past 2 years, is we need to be flexible. Flexibility, this is not a hard thing to do.
Well, and
it just requires, some movement. It requires some extra bit of work just to say, we need to think on the spot and think on our toes and think how we can make this work in a better way.
And also as well, I think if I'm putting myself in the shoes of a South Melbourne fan or of a neutral fan who lives in, I don't know, Cheltenham, just as a random example, I probably, if I was one of them, not only would I have liked the grand final to be somewhere else, but if it was put in a location or an area that doesn't work to me, isn't for my satisfaction, isn't one that I agree with necessarily, I wouldn't mind hearing about what were the actual, because we've discussed the things this evening, but we're piecing together information we've gathered online from people we've spoken to and all that sort of stuff. It would be better for us to be able to be reading a statement right now that has explained the reasons that have led to this decision. And some of them, as we've mentioned, are perfectly justifiable.
Yeah.
Completely on board with them.
That's what we said.
But that is probably something that if you are going to make what is a radical change to where you host your grand final from what's preceded, you would think that would come with some explanation to the masses. If I was a South Melbourne fan, I'd want to be hearing what's the process, what's the decision-making that's led to this. That's what I want to hear as a fan of one of these clubs.
That's why, obviously, we did put the call out to FE and we gave them the opportunity to come on the show today and say, this is why we chose it. This was the decision-making behind it. Posed the question as to, sort of why City Vista was chosen. Were there other venues in the reckoning? Why weren't they chosen? All sorts of different questions to pose to them. But unfortunately, that sort of didn't come to pass. But Lachie, we will be joined by Brad Norton in just a couple of minutes as we start to focus on what's going to actually happen on the pitch. We can yell and scream and, say a bit about the venue, but the game will still go ahead. So Brad Norton will be joining us in just a second. But before we get to Brad, Lachie, the other bit of big news that came before us on Sunday night, and we thought that would be one of the only biggest news, and we'll get to it in just a moment. We'll go a bit more deeper into it. But obviously, if you've missed it, Bentley Greens have, quote unquote, gone to market and parted ways with very successful coach Nick Lachie, who won the A-League the NPL Championship.
Wow, that would have been a bombshell.
The NPL Victoria Championship in 2019, Doherty Cup Championship this year. He's won, all sorts of different accolades and everything else. Even at Kingston City did a very good job with them. And this season still made finals, riddled with injuries, round of 16 in the Australia Cup. but parted ways the end of this season. So Bentley deciding to go a different way. And, of course, Savas Patekas as well parting ways with Altona Magic.
We'll do a bit of merry-go-round chat later, shall we?
Just a second.
Perfect.
But right now, we're being joined by Brad Norton, who's joining us to start to look ahead to Sunday afternoon. It's going to be a massive game between South Melbourne and Oakleigh, and Brad is giving us a bit of time to have a chat with him. Brad, welcome to the show.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me.
Well, Brad, I guess it's been a big week so far. We've said it's felt like a week. It's only been a few days since you played against Green Gully. But I guess, the takeaways from that win on Sunday, I mean, didn't come without a blow. Obviously lost 2 players to injury, but you're through to the grand final nonetheless.
Yeah, that's it. Sorry, I'm just moving as we do this. But yeah, absolutely. It was a pretty remarkable game, to be honest. I mean, to get to the semi-final, we've had a great year so far, but to get there was massive and always difficult. And obviously then to win at home in front of our supporters was big. So it came at a bit of a cost and something where we've got to put up with that now, getting into the grand final. But at the same time, we're happy to be there.
Well, I mean, obviously the result was good, but as you mentioned, Brad, it did come at a bit of a personal cost, losing some important players to injury, Andy, and of course we saw that pretty horrible tackle that saw, Ben obviously have that break of his fibula. He's had surgery. Have you been keeping in touch with the boys, keeping up to date with how they're tracking? Because, particularly for Ben, that's someone who's had a bit of injury trouble before. It's a pretty nasty one.
Yeah, look, definitely. Been in touch with both of them straight after the game. Yeah, Ben's one was, as you mentioned, and you guys have said it, a pretty horrendous tackle, and something where, it was pretty questionable. And I think it's, as you saw probably on the footage on the day, we were a bit unhappy about. But in saying that, he's now, it is what it is, and he's putting up with it, and we're right behind him. And he's got plenty of football in front of him, so much potential, and he's such a great player. So we're, hopefully getting back on the park shortly. But it's early signs are that leg brace, so it's not nice. And Andy, obviously, he's a great player for us. He's been a great player all season. He's done some great things over the past few years, not just at our club, but elsewhere in the A-League as well. So he's a massive loss, and heading into a grand final, it's not something you want to, go through and lose. But at the same time, I mean, we've got a great squad. We've got some great players, and the next two will step up and do the job that's required.
I mean, Brad, you guys have stayed relatively injury-free all season, but on the eve of finals, you lose Harry Sawyer off to India, and now you've lost Ben and Andy. How much of a disruption is that? How frustrating is it that you've lost 3 integral players at this stage of the season when you've been able to stay, compared to other teams like Oakleigh and Bentley, they've lost a plethora of players, but to lose 2 players and including Harry at this stage of the season, right now, how does that sort of throw things out of whack a little bit?
Oh, look, I mean, it's not nice. You start a season with your players and you sign a team to work your way through the season and get to this point. But, you got to deal with what's in front of you, and it's unfortunate. But, I mean, it's great for people like Harry, who's gone on and will go on and do some great things, hopefully over in India. And hopefully we get to see him maybe back in the blue and white one day. But in saying that, look, we wish him the best, and we still speak with him. So it's great for him. And like I said, it opens up opportunities for others. And that's what we'll be looking for this weekend. And I mean, it's a massive game. Like I said at the start, you play these, or you start playing soccer to get in these big games, and that's where you're now. So we'll be giving everything, and whoever steps into those positions and those roles will be, I'm sure, ready and waiting for it.
I guess the good thing for the squad as well, Brad, is that despite that, departure of Harry, where there was a bit of nerves, how is South going to go without Harrison Sawyer and all of that, the results haven't dissipated. They've continued. You guys got the win in the semi-final, and particularly once you got the lead, we saw again that strong defence come to the fore. How much of an advantage is that tight defence going into a game like the grand final where, you know, Oakleigh have got such a prominent attack, but you and the rest of the other backline have been locking it down most of the time.
Yeah, it's you know, I guess we've got pride in our defensive unit, and that doesn't just start from the back four and Harvey in goal. It starts from up top, and as I've mentioned, and you know, we're still getting these results just from being able to be defensively solid throughout the whole team. So, yeah, I mean, you look across Oakleigh's forward line especially, but across their whole squad, they've got some talent and, you know, they can flick the switch and all of a sudden they're 1, 2, 3, 4-0 up. So we know we have to be on. We know we have to be ready for it. As I mentioned, you know, Ben Gibber goes out, but Morgan, who came in last week, was incredible and did his job. So defensively, we train for these moments, we train for the big games, and we've been really defensively strong. So we'll be, you know, going in with that mindset to try and hold Oakleigh and their talent out as much as we can. But in saying that, you know, it's about goals these games. So you want to try and win them. So we'll be, you know, trying to do our thing up the other end of the park as well.
Well, Brad, it's no secret that, you know, this has been an amazing season for South Melbourne in terms of where South have been. And obviously you've been along the journey of the highs pre-2018 almost. And then the last few years have been tough. Obviously the 2 years pre-COVID, then last season and whatever 2020 was as well. But seeing South back up there this year, I mean, right at the top, where arguably belongs, how good is it just to see you guys back at that level? Because it has been some tough years, but what as well have you seen change during this period of time under Esteban? Like, what have you seen this year that's really like, what has flicked? Like, what switch has flicked this year that's made you guys such a formidable outfit once again?
Yeah, look, I mean, it's been a couple of years of on and off football. So, and we've been, I guess, in some ways lucky to, you know, get a coaching just before that period, keep the sort of core group from before that period. So, you know, you spend a couple of years, okay, it's probably not on the park where you want to be, but off the park training together, you know, whether it's through forums like this, just to, you know, be together. So we've been able to do that. We've been able to build a strong foundation throughout the team. And I guess as soon as we were able to start training again, you know, that Melbourne City game last year, we were able to start with that. But as soon as we were able to start training again, you know, the boys already felt like pretty much we were all, you know, quite that close unit. So because we've been training. So, yeah, look, I mean, in terms of what Esteban instills into us, you know, he instills that teamwork, that camaraderie, that unity that I guess is showing on the park. And, you know, not to say that we haven't had that in the past, but I think this year especially, you know, you get a couple of good results early on the park and, you know, some clean sheets and some good away wins and et cetera, and all of a sudden then the confidence starts to build. And, you know, we had that. And like I said, defensively, we try and pride ourselves on that. And I think that's really held us in some great stead moving now into a grand final.
Brad, I want to ask you about Max Mikkola because he play on the side, well, he sort of drifts across and everything like that. But when he's on your side, you don't need to worry about taking throw-ins anymore. Does that, what was your first reaction? We had a comment about, you know, what was your first reaction when you saw him just launch an absolute cannon into the box? I mean, what are your thoughts on it? Have you seen how much of an effective weapon it's been for you guys this season as well?
Yeah, the guy's this small and he's able to throw a ball further than what I can almost kick it. So he's yeah, look, he's a great player. He's a young talent. Deserves to be looked at by clubs all around Australia because of what he can bring to the table. But no, look, I mean, it's you know, I think back to, you know, the early years of my career at South Melbourne and players like Epifano and how they just controlled games and were able to turn it on with that bit of brilliance. You know, that's what Maxi's got. And he's not the only one. We've been able to bring in players like that across, as you mentioned earlier, people like Brennan, Alan Webb, etc. So, yeah, having him on my side, I probably don't get forward as much. Maybe that's the old age or maybe it's just because I know I'm so confident that Max can do so many things up in the forward line that I tend to sit back a little bit more. But no, having him is a blessing. And, you know, like you said at the start, there's no secret as to why we're there. And it's due to players like him coming in and just adding that quality around the dressing room and on the park as well.
Has he given you any tips or advice around the throws? I'm only asking because I'm sure if I think about our listener base, there's probably a lot of people who are Sunday footballers, and in a Sunday footballing environment, the long throw is a very valuable skill. If you've got any pointers, I'm sure they would take them.
Well, thinking back to it, I think the 2016 grand final against Oakleigh, the first goal was an assist from my throw-in. So I like to maybe have a sense that I'm also
so
involved.
You walk so Max could run. That's what you're saying.
Pretty much exactly that. No, I like I said, I don't know. He's such a small guy to have such a long throw-in is incredible. And it's just by looking at him, doesn't go to the gym or anything like that, doesn't work on the biceps that people might think that he does. It's just incredible talent that he's got, and after 3 or 4 steps of running up, all of a sudden the ball's past the goalkeeper. So it's incredible. And I honestly don't know how to do it. I'm sorry for the kids out there. I've got no tips for you there.
You touched on your assist in the grand final last time you played Oakleigh, and I think that segues pretty nicely into what has been, I think, out in Clubland, one of the big focuses of the sort of week leading into the grand final, which is the choice of venue. Last time, Oakleigh and South took one another on in a grand final. It was at Lakeside. Won't be the case this week. I'm curious to get your reaction when you found out that the venue wouldn't be Lakeside and it would be at City Vista.
It's look, you go through, and I guess probably as a junior growing up in the Victorian ranks, you go through and you always look at the NPL, or back then it was the VPL. That's show my age, but and looking at these guys playing off in some big games. I remember I think I was a ball boy for a gully grand final down at where Amy Park is now, at the old stadium down there. So. You look at that and you look at how they got to play in front of massive crowds and just the amount of support that they used to get, and it was just amazing. So, look, it is what it is. It's been, it's come out that that's the Caroline Springs grounds, and for us as players, we just focus on what we need to do. In saying that, absolutely. I mean, that Lakeside grand final against Oakleigh, drew upwards of 7,000 people. And it was an amazing atmosphere and to play in front of. And we were looking at some videos the other day of that, and it was awesome. So hopefully, it is what it is. If it stays at Caroline Springs, then we go to Caroline Springs and we play in a game which I'm sure will be a great spectacle for the people that'll be there and for anyone who's watching. But you can't beat these games where you play in football-specific stadiums with plenty of seats and plenty of people being able to watch. And Southall was going to hold, I think, upwards of 5,000 seats and everything else. So if possible to play it there, it'd be amazing. But there's plenty of other great grounds around the Victoria too.
How do you prepare to play at somewhere like Georgie's? Because it's not like anyone's played there this year. I mean, we spoke to Matt Fischini before. It's completely different. It is as neutral you can get for both of you guys. Yeah. Have you had much experience playing at Georgie's? It's not like you guys are playing out in the desert or anything, but it's a different set of circumstances to say playing at Jack Edwards or Olympic Village or Lakeside. How do you prepare for that?
Yeah, look, no, I haven't. I haven't been out there. I've heard things and obviously seen the photos and a bit of footage from the ground. But it's a football field. At the end of the day, as we spoke about at the start of this chat, that we've got a style of play and we've got a certain way of going in there. Defensive have been really strong, so we focus on our key points and what we can control, and that's our game plan. And that's all we're thinking about Wednesday and Friday now, the last couple of sessions of the week. And, whatever ground we go to, if it's out there at Caroline Springs, then we know it's going to have grass on it. We know it's going to have sidelines for Max's throw-ins and the rest of it. So we'll be focusing on what we need to focus on. But, when we get there, I'll see the grounds and hopefully lifting a trophy afterwards, and I'll be able to let you guys know then.
I know that the preparation, as you said, at this stage going into a grand final is mostly, one of inward focus. But even in saying that, Brad, as a defender, you would obviously be mindful, as we've touched on, of some of the attacking weapons that Oakleigh will be throwing at you on the day. Obviously, Joe Knowles might end up hanging around you a few times. They're now joint gold medalists. He scored 2 goals against Port. Is there someone specific that you sort of are watching out for? You're like, I'm going to have to be on my guard for when this guy's in and around my defensive area?
I think they've got a range of talent in their attacking third. And like I said, even their players come from behind. You spoke to Fish earlier, played with Fish for a number of years, and coming down from right back, he'll be running past me at certain occasions and probably saying the slight comment. So, whoever's going to be lining up on my side, I've got to deal with. Same with, obviously, Morgan, most likely on the other side. And, I guess they've got, like I said, they've got so many talented players. You don't really want to be lining up against any of them. Knowles, Decker's been playing out there a little bit as well. I think he's moved back a little bit further. But Guest, Foschini running down the wing. I think even Tyson might even come and just hang out with me just because of our age. I think we can maybe have a break together. But they've got so much talent. Whoever's out there I'll hopefully be able to deal with. But looking forward to the battle.
Or I know obviously you don't want him to run past you too many times if you can avoid it on the day, but do you look forward to playing against someone like Fish, not just because he's an ex-teammate, but also because he's a pretty talkative ex-teammate as well? And I know you're probably someone who's good at that back and forth as well. Like in terms of a verbal matchup on one side, like Brad Norton against Matt Fischini, that's pretty good in NPL terms.
Yeah, I think we've definitely had our words and good funny words more than anything. Banter maybe, if you want to call it that, back and forth over the years when we were together and against each other. So it's something where once you cross that white line, and I know people talk about it, but all you go out there to do is want to win. So whatever words might be said on the day, as soon as you cross it afterwards, you sort of forget about it again. You shake your hands and move on. But he's a great talker, Fish, and we've had some good battles in our times, and I'm looking forward to it again. And then if it's not through Fish, I'm sure he'll be hearing Tyson's voice over my shoulder as well. So be loving a bit of back and forth.
That is one game in any 1-11. You've got your work cut out for you before a ball's even been kicked. But just going back to the semi-final and how it sort of links into what's coming up this weekend. Obviously, the winning goal, as we've seen a few times from South this year, another just tremendous moment of quality from this one of the strongest NPL squads we've ever seen assembled. That was a sensational strike from Webby. Are you confident that quality is going to get you get you lifting the trophy at the end of the day against Oakleigh?
Yeah, look, you go into these games and we've had such a great year all across the whole space of the year, and you have to go in with some level of confidence, I guess. But in saying that, you've got to respect your opponents, and a team like Oakleigh, who's been able to back it up on numerous occasions. You saw that against Sydney, you saw that again against Port Melbourne on the weekend. It's going to be such a dogfight. It's going to be such a tough game. It's a grand final. Not often do you see multiple goals in grand finals. I mean, the last time we played each other was 3-2, but it's generally just a battle on the field, and that's what'll be happening, I reckon, this weekend. And two great teams, probably been the two sort of top teams throughout the space of the 2022 year. So I want to go in and say that I'm confident about it, but I know how good they are. I know how well they're led by Chris Taylor and his team, and we've had them before, so understand how well they're led, captained by Tyson. So it's you want to be confident, but at the same time you know what dangers they've got, and I just think it's going to be a really good game no matter where it's played. It's going to be a great game, and we hope as many people can get out there as possible in a safe manner wherever it is, and be able to watch a great game.
Well, Brad, thank you so much for joining us. Good luck for Sunday. It's going to be a cracking game nonetheless. Looking forward to it, and hopefully some silverware to go with it at the end of a second piece of silverware as well after winning the premiership earlier this year. But again, Brad, good luck for Sunday.
Thanks so much, guys, and thanks for having me on.
Not a problem. That is South Melbourne captain Brad Norton joining us there, Lachie. I mean, the stage is set for Sunday. It's going to be a cracking game nonetheless, despite all discussion about the venue.
Well,
it's
and when I am picking where I'm going to sit or where I'm going to stand in potentially, I don't know how early I'm going to get there. If I am going to be standing against the fence, I'm going to make sure it's whatever side Matt Foschini and Brad Norton are, because
it's going to be great.
The verbal,
you're going to have to do a switcheroo at halftime.
That will be worth
well.
the price of admission alone, and I will do the switcheroo.
Well, I hope that Tyson Holmes is the right side of the two in the pivot as well. So you got Fischini, Norton, and Holmes in like this Bermuda Triangle in a way that's just going to be on the same flank for the entirety of the game. It'll be a lot of fun to watch nonetheless. Lachie, just taking a look at some of the questions and comments coming through during our chat with Brad. Of course, the big discussion at the top was about the decision to host this grand final doubleheader at St. George's over at City Vista. A lot of talk about the parking. Josh Parrish, one of FNL alums, saying the car park is at least as big as Lakeside, but some people turning around saying that is incorrect. Josh saying as well, public transport is an issue. I caught the train, the bus there once, wouldn't recommend. Of course, parking is free compared to at Lakeside. You do have to pay for parking if you do park in the car park there. Josh as well alluding to the Western United youth game versus Preston Lions earlier this year where there was 1,500 people or so, and said the atmosphere was sensational. However, only one side of the ground is covered, so it's an issue if it rains. As we spoke about before, it looks like it is going to rain on Sunday. But yeah, in terms of, what's coming up, Lachie, obviously a lot of intense discussion surrounding this, and I only can assume in the days to come there's going to be a lot more that sort of comes to be. I mean, it's been 24 hours since the decision and social media has gone off. And I think by the time Sunday rolls around, I reckon there'll be a lot more that continues to happen, especially until FE, sort of say something publicly.
Yeah, it is going to be a fascinating old week, Nick. It's
never a dull moment in NPL Victoria.
And I think even I am surprised, and maybe I don't know, maybe FE are in the same camp, are surprised at the amount of reaction. Like this is no longer just a Victorian thing. Like I've seen people from South Australia, I've seen people from New South Wales weigh in and express their concern or surprise or shock or whatever emotion. Not many of them particularly positive, to be honest with you, at this decision. So it's a situation that's really got out of hand. Yeah. Like it needs to be reined in, sooner rather than later. Because again, it has the potential to be a great grand final. These are two sides who, have a bit of a historical, not a really, like a bit of a rivalry. Like they've had close games in the past. There's a bit of a back and forth. Rivalry. These are two teams who traditionally, South have had a couple of years of underperformance, but have traditionally been pretty strong. Have performed pretty well. They've got players who have played against one another on either sides, particularly a lot of ex-South players playing for Oakleigh now. The coach, Chris Taylor, of course, the guy who climbed the mountain. There's so many interesting narratives. These two teams have had brilliant seasons. South are back. Oakleigh have probably had the best season, arguably, in their history, going into the grand final, going into the semi-finals of the Australia Cup, knocking off an A-League team. These are the things that we should be talking about. What a good game this is potentially set to be between two sides who have had landmark years. That's where the focus should be.
Not the venue should be the last thing we should be worrying about.
It shouldn't be about where are we going to be playing. Yeah. How is everyone going to be catered to in the particular venue that's been chosen? That's the biggest shame more than anything else, where the ground's being played or anything like that, is that the actual football
is being overshadowed.
The grand final, the culmination of all this time, is not the focus of the day. Absolutely. That seems crazy to me.
Absolutely. And of course, just to kind of hone in terms of narrative as well, I mean, this is Oakleigh's chance, its first ever quote-unquote NPL crown. They've never actually won NPL Victoria. They won the VPL back in 2006.
But they were VPL premiers. They've never won a grand final.
Yep. So that was their last piece of silverware. They haven't won the Doherty Cup either. So that's something to sort of, keep an eye on. This was history for Oakleigh. And for South Melbourne, of course, I mean, they were champions only as far back as 2000 and Having a look here, 2016 was last time they were champions. So, and of course, this is their first finals appearance since 2017
One thing as well, Nick, that's also been brought to my attention, which again, depending on the timing, how many people we actually expect to go to a grand final, because at least some South fans online have been saying, we're not going to go to the grand final as a result of this, we'll watch at home. But there is also sort of, I don't know whether this is going to be changed for the day, if there is a way you can change it, but at the moment there is sort of one designated entry into George Cross. I guess that's the same for Knights, for example, but not the same for Lakeside.
No,
there's plenty of. That's the thing that is good about Lakeside, and there are legitimate criticisms you can make about that venue. I mean, the distance from the ground of the actual seating. I think some people express concerns about that, but it's still seating. But one thing I think is really its big strength is it does have capacity to scale up and scale down depending on the needs.
How many people,
So if there's more requirements, Lakeside has more that it can do to allow for a bigger crowd, as opposed to a smaller venue, which once it's at capacity, once it reaches a bottleneck, not much you can do.
We even had, Cotsey put his hand up and say Northcote would be happy to host. I mean, John Cain wouldn't be the worst ground either if it was a one-off grand final.
It's true.
Wouldn't mind it there. I mean, even going back to, talking, sorry if this might sound like Paco bias, if there is such a thing, but CB Smith wasn't. I know it's the big pole, and everyone talks about the pole.
The grandstand's not a million miles bigger, though.
No, I know that, but it's still more accessible. And it's a better facility.
Is it more accessible?
The grandstand's actually a lot bigger. I think that there's
it's not accessible super accessible by public transport. There's a train to Gowrie Station, and then it's a 10-minute Uber or something.
Sure, but George's is not necessarily.
I don't think.
I'm just saying.
With all due respect, I don't think necessarily other grounds in the West, other than Knights, just because it is a 5,000-seater grandstand, like it could cater the whole crowd pretty much in the one grandstand. What a thing that would be! What a noise that would be as well.
Absolutely.
By the way,
even BT Connor
is that unless there's a team that's qualified in the West, even the grand final, it should be in a central location.
Even BT Connor Reserve. I know this thing about seeding.
I'm not touching that.
Anyways, just let's go now. Let's move on from the grand final venue discussion. But if anyone wants to have their say, feel free to get in touch. And obviously say your bit if you want to drop in some comments or anything below. We've still got the Zoom link open as well.
And we have the SMS open as well on 04289 33345. I had someone who's just come through 2 minutes ago, Nick. He says, "Hi guys, I've been a lifelong member of South, but myself and 3 other mates, who I can only imagine are South Melbourne supporters, who have been long-time members," so he does say that, "won't be going."
Yep.
So that's 4 people you can
it's going to probably be, I reckon, quite a few viewers on the Facebook stream, because he's going to be on Facebook or on NPL.tv as well. And disappointing that fans have been turned off by the experience to it. So I do wonder if things will change beforehand. I really do. I get a feeling this isn't the last we're going to hear of it. Lachie, let's switch our attention to the coaching merry-go-round that is at Bentley and Altona at the moment.
Oh, boy.
Then we'll go to a break, and of course Matthew Fischini as well. I'll chat with him a little bit earlier on the other side of it too. Nick Tolios departs Bentley Greens. Savas Patikis departs Altona Magic. The Nick Tolios one in particular threw us off, because I did not see this coming. I don't think anyone saw this coming after a really successful tenure at Bentley, especially considering what he did this season with all the injuries, winning the Doherty Cup, making finals, doing what he did, round of 16 in the Australia Cup, pushing Sydney right to their wits' end. And in the end, Bentley have decided to part ways and go to the well and basically say, we want a full-time coach. That's literally what they're now saying in their advertisement they put out today. But my God, was it a baffling decision to part ways with Nick? Very much a baffling decision. I still can't believe it, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, it was a massive surprise. Obviously, Tolsey came in at the end, the departure of the Johnny A reign, the reign of supremacy under John Anastasiadis, and in his, I think, second, maybe third, I'm pretty sure second game in charge, obviously won the NPL Victoria Grand Final. I think it was third game in charge, won the NPL Victoria Grand Final with the Greens. This, because of the, pandemic-related interruptions, This is his first full season in charge of the Greens. And they had a little bit of a slow start to the season, but really from sort of the first third of the season onwards, they've been very good.
Absolutely.
They have, in Nick Tolios' first season, they finished 5th. Okay, that's about where they were, I think, in 2019 or thereabouts, maybe slightly lower. But they've made the round of 16 of the Australia Cup, where they've come very close to knocking off an A-League side on their own patch. A lot of people were very impressed with that performance. Maybe it's been somewhat overshadowed now by what Oakleigh have been able to achieve. Yeah. But it was still a brilliant performance. And again, they approached Sydney playing their brand of football. They didn't cower. They didn't hide in the corner. They played their possession brand and impressed people, and rightly so. Yeah. And they won the Doherty Cup. I don't know what the particulars of this situation are. I'm not familiar with the discussions that Bentley and Nick have had with one another. But I find it difficult to see, in the face of the obstacles as well that have been faced by Bentley, which you've touched on, the injuries and all of that. I find it difficult to see how a hierarchy of a football club could not be satisfied with that set of outcomes at the end of a year. Mm-hmm. That to me is shocking. And if you're deciding to go to market, so to speak, at the expense of a coach who, again, if we're looking at it purely on a performances and results basis, we're not there at training every week. We don't know what the situation with the squad is like or anything like that. I'm not casting aspersions by saying that. I'm just saying we don't know those elements. But on results and performances alone, really hasn't put much of a foot wrong this year.
Absolutely.
If you're going to market, this better be
a very astute pickup.
A big appointment.
But the thing is, though, like it's not even like they had someone lined up to replace him straight away. They've put out a bloody advert today and said, "Come get the job," and they've dangled the
Bentley Greens issues. Come and get me, please.
Yeah, it's basically like coach. It's literally like in wrestling, like putting out an open challenge.
Yeah, no, that's
just saying. But the thing is, they've said a full-time coach. They want to go for the big dogs. Because it seems like, if they're putting that out there, they have to have the coaching A license and everything like that. They want to go big. But again, like, why couldn't they, if Nick was like good enough and they wanted to go down that route, which I think he was.
Did they have conversations about making
Nick maybe. We don't know that. But from what I understand, I think Nick was caught off guard by the departure.
Well, again, I think he's an unfortunate and unlucky collateral of this decision by Bentley. I mean, they've really made a rod for their own back here.
Yeah.
Because Tolsey, in what he's achieved in his debut season, has set the bar very high. Obviously, Johnny A had also set the bar pretty high. And Bentley, let's not forget, have been, up to this point, a very well-run club in terms of what they do in a footballing sense, the way they play and all of that sort of stuff. The person who comes into this job is going to be under immense pressure to deliver as not much, if not more, than Nick Tolios, if for no other reason than regardless of whatever CV he comes in with, if you want to go to market, you ideally want to bring someone in better, they're going to be full-time.
Yeah, and that means even more expectation beyond the fact they're replacing bloody Nick Tolios. They are a full-time coach. They're probably the only full-time coach in the entire league.
I think you made a great point earlier as well. I think the bit that really rubs you the wrong way about this is if Bentley had someone signed up that they were like, okay, this guy definitively, in terms of his record, his CV, undeniably is a better coach than Nick Tolios in their eyes. If they had someone ready to go, then maybe you could understand it, and you can not get out in front of it, but you can be quick to you can beat people to the punch. You can beat the critics to the punch by having someone ready to go.
Yeah.
The fact they just thrown it open and cast Nick aside and suggested that what he's done is not good enough, to me is absolutely stunning, really.
It's stunning, absolutely.
It's stunning.
And the thing is now, it's all right, as you mentioned, to the well, whoever comes out of this, it's going to be very interesting to see who replaces Nick Tolios. But my God, it still doesn't feel... It almost doesn't feel real. I still feel baffled by it.
And I guess the other question is, what does this mean for Tolsey? What does this mean for Nick Tolios as well? Where does he head? Does he head anywhere? Well, because if it was me, if I was him, I'd be feeling pretty jaded about the whole situation.
And I think there would be clubs lining up for his signature. I mean, if there are clubs, obviously, that don't have a coach right now, Melbourne Knights, Altona Magic, Bulleen Lions, you're throwing the kitchen sink at him. If there are clubs that even have a coach right now and they're not too sure exactly where they want to go with it, if it's not really working
maybe
out.
They want to go to market.
Maybe they want to go to market and they see Nick Tolios as the alternative. Maybe a coach has already come up with some sort of agreement to go somewhere else and Nick Tolios is coming in. But it'll be an interesting watch this space. That's one nonetheless. Well, from what I understand, it's going to be a watch this space. But
very much so.
Just, everyone hold their horses because I expect this coaching merry-go-round is going to get pretty...
From the words that we have heard, which we can't report yet.
It's going to get pretty crazy.
The scuttlebutt that's already come out with the season not even done.
It is
going to be a fascinating off-season, and we're not talking player transfers.
And of course, Savas Patekas as well departing from Altona. I mean, kind of not surprising given the way Altona finished the season. I mean, they stayed up. I guess in the sense of, you know, he did a good job at the start of the season in getting those like tight wins and getting the points on the board. But they went through that really barren run.
It's too hard to, and I will say this as someone who watched a bit of Altona, particularly mid-season, and thought there's some very interesting things that you guys are doing tactically. The three at the back they're operating with, they really got the best out of some of their players. I mean, Jamal Ali is still someone who I think could actually reach the next level, sort of beyond the NPL. He's such an intelligent player. But I think for all the interesting things they had been doing, it's impossible to look past that second half of the season, which was, as you said, barren. But I do think that Savas Patekas has shown enough as a coach that someone else might be interested in seeing what he can do. Maybe a club at an NPL, maybe a club at an NPL 2 level who might might look at what he's done. And
I don't think we've seen the last of him at all. I think we'll see him surface at an NPL 2 or NPL 3 level, and I think he could be a very good coach at that level. I think he'd be a great coach for any team looking to get promoted. We spoke about how tough NPL 2 is going to be next year. And I do suspect that there will be clubs looking at him. And as we said, Bulleen is one of those clubs that are looking for a coach. So maybe Savas is someone that they might chat to, someone they might look at. And
that's an interesting dynamic as well. It's like we've got two coaches who are already out the door at this stage of the off-season. And both of them are coaches you expect to, either end up back in the NPL or in the NPL too.
Even, I don't know what the situation is with Eastern Lions and Andrea Lombardo, but if Andrea Lombardo is not, I don't know if it was a caretaker in the end or if he was a full-time coach, but maybe Eastern Lions put out a call to Savas Patekas if they want to try those ambitions to come straight back up. But nonetheless, a real watch this space with the coaching merry-go-round. It's going to get quite crazy. And of course, I don't know if we spoke about this, but of course, Fausto Diomisis departed from Bulleen as well. So that's a third team, a big club that will be looking at a new coach. And Fausto's a coach who I think will definitely resurface somewhere in NPL 2, maybe NPL 3. I don't think he'll be out of a position for too long. And of course, thinking about free agent coaches, there's still Gus Salakis, who was sacked by Northcote. There's still Kosti Pushkashu as well, who departed Eastern Lions last season. There's still Steve Bebic as well. So there's going to be coaches that I think are going to be looked at in this period of time. Maybe some clubs may be thinking, all right, like these guys available, do we pull the trigger?
And do we, the other question is, do we see people from outside the NPL, the Victorian NPL be considered?
Well, from what I understand, Lachie, from what we've both heard, is that there may be some interest from other, we spoke about players that cross the divide and come down here. But from what I understand, there may be word of coaches too. So again, watch this space. We'll be all over it in the time that comes. But it's going to get interesting over the next little bit of time to see, I guess, who sort of falls where all the dominoes fall in this, and where, I guess, who ends up coaching who really out of all this. It's going to be rather fascinating. Lachie, before we get to our chat with Matt Fischini, that we did a little bit earlier today, we shall talk about the gold medal night, I think, as well, because we've kind of already reviewed the semis, but we'll go back to it a little bit later on as well. We spoke to Brad Norton. We'll find a way to intertwine it all. The gold medal night last night, you were lucky enough to attend last night. We saw obviously Joe Knowles and Kane Shepherd take out the BNF for the year. Tied at the top. Yep. Daniel Wise as well, winning it for the women's. Daniel Wise won it? No. Sorry, I'm getting it mixed up.
It was Sophia Sakalis.
and Sarah Kane. Yeah, and so
she won the Golden Boot.
Golden Boot. Sorry, I've had a bit of a brain fade. And of course, Joe Guest as well, winning the Bill Fleming Award, as you alluded to earlier. Corey Thomas winning the NPL 2 Player of the Year, won both awards. He was a clean sweep from Corey Thomas.
Player and umpire or referee. Umpire.
He's won the umpire.
So that's like a sin on this podcast.
I was going to say, you're going to talk about that.
You have to pay a fine for that, I think.
I think so. I think you have to put that.
Let's do some sort of forfeit in our grand final review episode.
Put that towards like the next little bit of Uber Eats we get before the show.
We'll workshop that one. Yeah. Very fascinating, the gold medal in particular, to see it be shared.
Yep.
I think for the first time, if my memory serves me correctly. But to be honest, I think it's hard to argue. I think Joe Knowles has obviously had a season so good that he's had A-League men's interest, an A-League men's club now sign him. We've had Chris Taylor say that on this very station before, that he is signed up. It's just a matter of announcing the transfer to Brisbane Roar. And we know how well you have to play, how good of a season you have to get A-League interest. Well, that's the kind of season that Joe Knowles has had. And then, these are awards as well that let's not forget do sort of, not preference, but obviously goals and assists when you're trying to think back, 3, 2, 1, that sort of thing. You're going to remember the players who are scoring and setting up. Kane Shepherd has scored him, has set him up for his teammates. When he wasn't scoring, he was playing other people in. He's had a brilliant year. He's had an absolutely brilliant year. And I think 2 winners that were very, very deserving. And shout out as well to George Mells, who finished the season also on 24 votes. We would have had a 3-way tie, but George Mells had a red card, so that ruled him ineligible.
Harry
so he
Sawyer
also
only a point behind as well.
Actually, Mells is particularly, I think, impressive because he's only had, I think, 3 goals, 2 assists this season.
Yeah.
So for him to sort of be polling that well in the centre of the park, equal to the eventual gold medal winners, that's
pretty impressive.
Pretty big. And that does sort of reflect on the kind of season we've had, that 3 people are winning, and then you have, is that 2 players in
Harry Sawyer on 23, John Albano on 22, then it's 3 players on 19, Chris Duggan, Tyson Holmes, Ali Suleimani.
That's a tight race.
Yeah, and then Mikula and Shrone on 18. So I'm very curious to see who's after that, because I think it just kept going. And then of course in NPL 2, as we mentioned, Corey Thomas won it by some margin in the end, by 6 points clear of Jonathan Boonis, who was ineligible at the end. Shout out to Jonathan Boonis. What a season he had for Northcote.
There was no NPL 2 goal of the season.
No,
or NPL 3 goal of the season, but Jonathan Boonis, he would have won it.
The big boy. Caleb Mikulich as well came a tie with him on 23. Then, of course, Joshua Knight on 18. Nick Bavkar, Ben Everson, surprisingly. Ben Everson, after missing quite a few games, getting 17 votes. Ryan Opperman, Luke Pavlou, 16. Then Macaronis, Phil Petreski, and Adrian Tallarico getting 13 votes. And in NPL 3, of course, Andrew Mullet's winning it by 1 point clear of Connor Bell and Samuel Catherine. Very tight race.
To be fair to Connor Bell, had won everything else. He'd won the players,
but just didn't win that one.
Boot. It didn't get that one.
Yeah, so as well, quite a tight in the end. I mean, Marvin Brolweiler coming only 2 points behind, with Jordan Lawton and Harry Polititis as well getting 15 from Western United and Melbourne City respectively. So a very tight race, but Andrew Mullet from Nunawading, along with AJ McPhee, winning the Golden Boot. So quite overall, a successful awards campaign for Nunawading. Of course, no promotion for them, but they get something. The Coaches of the Year, no surprise from NPL 3, Louis Asevsky taking that one home. In NPL 2, Stuart Begg winning it ahead of Adrian Mathers. So in terms of sort of, that's an interesting one, because I actually had some of the Moreland City players. We know we spoke about how Byron Figueroa is a keen listener as well. Max Basetto saying, it's interesting that the goalkeeper of the year were both from North Geelong, but not for
the
both
goalkeeper and the coach of the year.
Yeah, so Stuart Begg and, of course, Hamish Flavelle winning those awards ahead of Adrian Mathers and Andrew Condalian. And then, of course, the NPL men's coach of the Adam Pittick. I think what he's done with Port Melbourne has been sensational, despite the fact that it ended up in a semi-final exit.
I mean, maybe Esteban Quintas would be feeling a little hard done. But I think
take into consideration,
that is what I think some would say. I think no one deserves that award more than Adam Pittick. Like the way he has been able to maximize the talent of that. And it's a good side, but I think most would agree it's not quite on the same level, on paper at least, of an Oakleigh and of a South Melbourne. And yet he has been competitive and been one game away from the grand final.
And of course, the other awards, Lachie, just quickly, Helen Winterburn winning the NPL Women's Coach of the Year from FE Emerging.
Good way to head into an A-League women's job. Yeah.
And of course, Francesca Umano winning Goal of the Year for NPL Women's, and Charlie Fry. Well, this was the interesting quirk. I want you to tell us about the quirk of him winning this.
About this.
The floor is yours.
Okay. I want to talk about this goal of the season award on two fronts. Would you say, because those who don't remember, brilliant goal halfway from kickoff from Charlie Fry. You do recall that he did something he scored a very similar goal in 2021. Yeah. Now, for you've seen the other contenders for goal of the season. Do you think Charlie Fry's goal in 2022 is made more or less impressive by the fact that he scored a very similar goal in 2021? Do you think the fact that this is his second attempt makes it more worthy of being goal of the season?
You know what it's like, and I know that Oscar Rutherford is out there will like this comparison. Actually, to be honest, I don't think he doesn't really want to hear Collingwood comparisons, but it's like how Jeremy Howe takes Speckies, and it's like you just expect him to be right up there every year for Mark of the Year. But like, he scored from bloody halfway, for God's sake.
It's true.
It's still a goal from halfway.
Braden Mann's scissor kick was pretty good.
Braden Mann was very close, as was Gianluca Iannucci's goal against Heidelberg.
His half volley against Heidelberg.
Which was very,
to be fair, it was a tough pick. And I actually, on second thought, do think the fact that Charlie Fry did it again and did it from kickoff this time.
Probably more impressive.
It probably is more impressive. But the interesting thing was that Charlie Fry scored that goal while playing for the Eastern Lions in the NPL.
Yeah.
He has since moved on in the mid-season window to go and play for Kingston, where he helped them stay in the NPL 2. Now, Charlie Fry wasn't there at the gold medal night last night. Not sure what reason. Hope he's well, all good. I don't know.
Hope he got invited.
But the upshot was he wasn't able to receive his award. So in a weird twist of events, it wasn't someone from Eastern Lions who went to go pick up the award for Charlie because he doesn't play for them anymore. How would they get the award to him? So I'm still trying to wrap my head around this as I say it out loud. The winner of the goal of the season who playing for Eastern Lions, who wasn't there, his award was connected by Kontangalakis, the head coach of Kingston City, who I imagine will now return it to Charlie Fry. But it was just this bizarre moment where everyone was looking around, where's Charlie Fry? Where's Charlie Fry? Where's Charlie Fry? And then out of nowhere, you just see Kontangalakis, suited and booted, just marching up to the podium. This is very fascinating.
Absolutely. And end of the day, as we said, Lachie, I mean, it's pretty incredible that, he can do it twice. So I think that he's a worthy winner nonetheless. But in terms of some of the other awards, just quickly, obviously mentioned Joe Guest winning the Bill Fleming Award, the Media Award for Player of the Season, 12 goals and 11 assists. Amazing year from him, but didn't even get the top 10.
Didn't crack the top 10.
Which is incredible. Alana Cern came out with the NPL Women's Media Player of the Year as well. So that was some of the awards. And as well, Lachie Keevers winning the NPL Men's Referee of the Year.
And he'll be refereeing the grand final this weekend as well.
Yep. Goalkeeper of the Year, Javi Lopez. I think that's fair enough. And Elisa
richly deserved. Yep. He's had an incredible year for South. He'll be like, he's arguably my key player. Like you could mount a pretty strong case for him being the key player on
the Players Player of the Year, Rebecca Burrows for NPL Women's, Connor Bell for NPL 3, Corey Thomas, we said clean sweep, winning the NPL 2-1, Joe Knowles as well for NPL Men's. Hey, Lachie, let's take a quick break. Let's have a bit of a breather for a second. On the other side of this, we caught up with Matt Fischini a little bit earlier today in regards to the big game this weekend between South Melbourne and Oakleigh. After that, we'll get into a full preview of the grand final. Massive game this weekend between South Melbourne and Oakleigh. We'll get to your comments. We'll get to your questions. It's been a big show here on the NPL Victoria Pod, but there's still plenty more to come just after this.
Are you looking to change your destiny in life? Be your own boss? Start your own business? If you are, you need people who understand your needs and are committed to helping you make it happen. At DKP & Co Chartered Accountants, we are more than just accountants. We are business advisors, taxation consultants, and strategists that specialise in setting up businesses. We understand the client and give them the very best customised advice and strategies to achieve their goals. Visit our website, dkpco.com.au or give us a call today on 03 9023 9370. Fast, proactive, personal. That's DKP & Co Chartered Accountants.
Since 1998, Lanco Group has been providing superior civil engineering solutions and advice to developers, local government and service authorities across Australia. Lanco Group is known for delivering sustainable, efficient solutions. By working closely with clients, Lanco Group is able to meet the complex infrastructure requirements for residential, commercial and industrial developments on time, on budget. Find out more at lancogroup.com.au. Lanco Group, your business partner for engineering solutions.
We're this great sporting nation who has yet to embrace fully the world's greatest game, and for so long of trying to have the game accepted. And when I'm up to the big football field in the sky, I just want people just to remember I told you so.
And suddenly the complexion of the game changes. Let's hope it doesn't, but this is the best period for Iran in the match. Ali danger for Australia here. The flag's down.
You just feel for them. Not just the boys. They are representative of so many people who make this game their life. It's just... I can't say anything, mate.
All right.
Especially as they have the impetus. Aloisi. Cahill. Cahill! Tim Cahill has done it again! What a goal by Tim Cahill! 2-1 Australia! Oh, it's a wonderful moment in Kaiserslautern! And Tim Cahill has come off the bench and maybe won the match for the Socceroos.
You're listening to FNR, Football Nation Radio.
Victoria Pod. Obviously been a big show so far, and we're continuing our grand final preview, Lachie. We've spoken to Brad Norton a little bit earlier from South Melbourne. Obviously, we've got the South Melbourne side, but now let's get the Oakleigh side as well. We're joined here by Matt Fischini. Matt, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Well, Matt, it's a massive week. It's been a massive, month plus 2 months for you guys.
I'm not even sure massive is the appropriate word.
Absolutely.
I don't know. What's bigger than massive? I really
Absolutely.
don't know.
And it's, really a massive 10 days coming up for you guys with the Australia Cup. But first, obviously, the grand final on Sunday. I guess, take us through the last few days. A great win on Saturday against Port Melbourne as well.
Yeah, like you guys said, it's been a massive few months for us. We just feel like we keep playing big game after big game. Week in and week out, and we somehow keep managing to come out on top. But yeah, Saturday night was another one. We were probably a bit heavy-legged in the first half after a massive game on the previous Wednesday against Sydney, and took a little bit of time to get into the game. And we obviously went down a goal, and the resiliency of our team is unbelievable, and it's something I haven't seen in all my years playing football, being a part of such a team like this, where when our back's against the wall, sometimes where we do our best work. And it's obviously handy to have a player like Joe Knowles come off the bench, and he did the business. And here we are, looking forward to Sunday.
I remember speaking to CT, Matt, a few weeks ago ahead of the Brisbane City game, when the injuries were almost at a peak. We've seen Oscar come back since that time. He said about that Brisbane City game, I just want to scrape through. And if we can scrape through, then that'd be ideal. And yet here we are in a situation where you guys have made it through to the grand final. You've beaten Brisbane City. You've now beaten Sydney FC as well. And not just a lucky win. You beat them on your own terms, absolutely, particularly in that first half. I kind of asked Tyson Holmes the same question, but I like getting a perspective from all angles. What's been the secret? What's been the key to managing this period and still, in the face of all these different obstacles, putting in performances and getting the results as consistently as you had? Because it honestly is mind-boggling. Like, every time you think Oakleigh are done, this is surely the point at which the fun stops. You guys pull through and you keep on pulling through. It's been a remarkable season.
Yeah, it's funny. I mean, everywhere we turn and everyone we talk to keeps saying, when's it going to end? When's it going to end? You guys are lucky, you got injuries and all the rest of it. But for us, it's just a case of we've got, 3 or 4 really experienced boys, and, we've all been there and done that before at this level. And, we kind of, when I say manage the playing group, we get everyone together and, get focused for the next game. It's minimal training for us at the moment. It's just about getting up for the next game. And like I said earlier, each game for us has been like a bit of a cup final. It's been do or die for the last month. And, like I said, we've got those experienced heads, and we all put our heads together and get around the younger boys and the less experienced boys and, give our best advice to them of what's best for each game. And particularly that Brisbane game, we were down to bare bones and we still managed to pull it out, albeit the hard way. But yeah, like I iterated earlier, the resiliency of our team is incredible. And we have players like Big Nick come off the bench, off the bench, he thrust into the starting 11 in that Brisbane game, scores a few goals. And then, he's back on the bench, and then someone else comes in the following week. And, it's that next man up mentality. And, we've really embraced that.
In terms of the defensive half, Matt, I mean, you've been one of the few constants. I mean, yourself and Aaron have been the only ones that really have been out there every week, it seems. Obviously, you've had different defensive partners all year with, Oscar going down, Hamish going down, Jacob going down. You've had, Oliver and Tyson spend time in defence, even Wade playing at left back. How good is it to now start to get at least a bit of a semblance of your best back four out there, getting Oscar Dillon back and having Anthony down there as well, and albeit the goalkeeper you've got behind you's only been there for about a week.
Yeah, I mean, I think when I say everyone knows us for our attacking, we have such great attacking players and they sometimes steal the limelight. But I feel like we're at our best when the back four is really strong. And unfortunately, injuries to Jacob and Hamish and then Oscar and all the rest of it hasn't been favourable for us. But we had our best back four out there against Sydney FC, and we showed what we could do. We held them at bay, and like you guys mentioned earlier, it wasn't a lucky win at all. We really held our own, particularly defensively. We didn't really give them much. I mean, they scored one offside goal, and then obviously the goal that counted. But other than that, we didn't give them an inch. And I feel like when we're really solid at the back, we're the springboard for our front 4 or 5 to really, really be damaging.
And I think, going back to the Port Melbourne game on the weekend, because that was a fresh Port Melbourne, a fully fit Port Melbourne. And once you guys got back into the game, the defence in particular, I thought Aaron really, really stood up. And obviously Joe got the goals and got his joint gold medal last night. Joe Guest was the Bill Fleming Media Player of the Year. Do you feel like that defence is not getting enough credit for the work it's been doing in this season when all the attacking players are, getting their gongs, getting their photos taken up on stage? Are you thinking, where's Matt Foschini? Why am I not holding a trophy?
Sometimes it's a bit like that, I won't lie. I mean, it's like that across the globe, I guess. The attacking players, the players with a bit more flair, get all the credit, but we know how important we are to the team as a back four, as a unit, and we're all really close, both on and off the field with each other, and we know what we bring to the team, and we don't, no disrespect, but we don't need any trophies or accolades to know just how good we've been going this year and how good we can be when we're all playing at our best. And like I said, the game against Sydney was the crescendo for us of a really successful year as a back four when we played together, because when we've all been out there, we're hard to get by, that's for sure.
Well, that win over Port Melbourne was the breaking of a bit of a semi-hoodoo for Oakleigh. Obviously, you've been to the semi-finals the 3 previous series before 2016 and fallen down at that penultimate hurdle. You're into the grand final, and this is what you guys have been, angling for pretty much ever since CT came in, ever since you made your return. And your opponent on the weekend is, of course, a familiar face for both yourself and CT in the form of South Melbourne. No love lost between you and Hellas in games that have gone by since that time. How are you feeling about your opponent for this weekend?
Yeah, I can't wait. I mean, like you said, we are familiar foes, and we have a bit of history between us. There's no love lost, and since we lost to them in the last game we played them during the year, I was praying this day would come that we'd be able to face them in the final. I'm ready. I'm raring to go. It's the most excited and amped up I've been for a long time. It's going to be a great game. There's going to be plenty of fireworks, I hope. And I mean, this club deserves a championship. We've been so close, so many times. I mean, in 2016, I was at South when we beat them in the granny, but now the shoe's on the other foot, if you like, and we'll be doing our best to obviously get the job done. And I couldn't have asked for a better opponent to face, to be honest.
And Matt, I mean, looking back at that last meeting, I mean, you lost 1-0, and it was a bit of a weird game. Like it was quite tight. They scored that one goal through Marcus Schroen off a mistake. It felt like it was almost destined for a goalless draw, but you guys had your chances in that game. When you came out of that, what was the messaging from CT? Because it's not like they sort of humbled you guys in any way. It was a really tight game, and you beat them at home earlier in the year. Do you take confidence out of that you're right with them, like you can knock them off?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, Knowlesy wasn't playing. Oscar, that's when he got his injury, and then they scored a few minutes after he went off. Like you said, from a bit of a mistake, they scored, and the keeper had a blinder. He saved a couple of rippers earlier in the game. We came away from that obviously disappointed because our minor premiership title hopes pretty much faded that night, and it was obviously disappointing because we'd been neck and neck with them all year. But credit to them, they kept going and they've nutted out gritty 1-0s and tight wins all year, which isn't easy to do. So, like I said, we'll take nothing away from them, but we have to be confident that we can knock them off this weekend. And they're definitely not unbeatable by any means. And we'll have our best 11 out on the park, again, which hasn't been a constant this year for us. So that gives us every opportunity to win it all this weekend.
Do you pay much attention to the strengths and weaknesses of South? Because obviously, in referencing the previous game, you had a few important, Joe Knowles, obviously, one of the most important attackers out for that game, which is sort of something that South are obviously dealing with at the moment. Their golden boot is now gone off to India. Didn't exactly hurt them in the semi-final. They got the result in the end, but they're a bit of a different kettle of fish, I guess, whereas you guys have got this attack that has played together. Basically, everyone's fully fit now. We know what they can do. Does that maybe that sort of contrast in the front lines maybe give you guys a bit of an edge, do you feel?
I mean, look, everyone deals with injuries and things like that through the year, particularly in the season, such a long run. We've played so many games, but their backline's very, very solid. They've conceded hardly any goals, the least amount of anyone this year. So although our front line is very potent, we have to respect just how good their defence is as well. So although, like you said, they pose a different threat up the other end for us. I mean, Harrison's a different beast. He's a massive unit, and he draws 2-3 defenders at a time.
Like a big vortex up front. He just sucks everyone else in.
Absolutely. So, look, am I glad he's not playing? Absolutely, but it doesn't mean that whoever steps in for him, whoever they decide to play up there or whatnot, is any less of a threat. We still have to do our homework and pay attention to that. But it's definitely a massive plus for us that he's not playing, and the fact that we're full strength in our attacking half is it's obviously beneficial for us.
Does the venue come into consideration, Matt? I mean, City Vista, no one's played there at least at a top tier level this year. I mean, obviously they've been the home of Georgie's, and this is as neutral as it gets. Does that play into anything? I mean, obviously nothing really changed in terms of, the rules or anything like that, but obviously it's an unfamiliar sort of, set of circumstances, an unfamiliar venue for you guys. Does that come into consideration at all?
A little bit. I mean, I was having a conversation with someone earlier, like, it's weird for myself. I've been around so long, and playing a grand final at a place I've never played before is kind of weird. Usually my car drives itself to wherever the venue is, and I'm on autopilot. I know where the change rooms are, what to do and all that. So just little things like that. It is a bit different. I mean, it's an interesting choice of venue, I'll say. But at the end of the day, both teams have to play there, and we'll make the trek out there on Sunday and we'll deal with it when we get there.
Feel free not to answer this if you don't want to, but are you a little bit disappointed that it's not at a bigger venue? Because obviously there's been a lot of talk amongst, a lot of fans and a lot of people in Football Victoria circles. You played in that game against Oakleigh when you were at South in that grand final where big atmosphere at Lakeside Stadium, Are you a bit disappointed that there's not that opportunity to get as many people in and City Vista's a little bit more of a smaller venue?
Oh, absolutely. It's very disappointing from the Federation that we have to play out there. No disrespect to that venue, but at the end of the day, it's the first grand final post-COVID. Like, you'd want to put on a bit of a show, whether it be... Like, I probably prefer it not to be at Lakeside, obviously because it's South's home ground, but it does bring a certain type of atmosphere, and we'd bring our own set of fans, and a lot of more neutral fans will come down. It's a more of a central venue. I mean, I don't know if Amy Park was ever on the table, if that was too expensive or whatnot, but at the end of the day, it's the showpiece event of our league, of our season, and for it to be out, I don't want to say out there, like I said, I don't mean any disrespect, but for it to be out there is a little bit disappointing for us, because both teams, we feel like we've earned playing on the big stage in front of as many people as possible at the best venue possible. I just feel like, minimal thought and effort was put in by whoever it was that decided for us to play out there.
Well, it's going to be a bit of a different one for you in the sense you'll have to think about where you're going. You'll have to actually pay attention to the navigation, to the Apple Maps, or I don't know what your preferred navigation system is, but you'll have to actually pay attention to it as opposed to Lakeside or Jack Edwards where you don't really have to think about it too much. But at the end of the day, the prize, the objective will be the absolute same as it would, even if it was played at, I don't know, the home of the Yarra Jets, for example. It'll be, obviously, the NPL Victoria grand final. You've been there, you've climbed the mountain before, but it's a different beast to do it with Oakleigh, to do it with them for the first time, and to do it with a club who you've been at before. You were there sort of before you went on to victory. Where would this sort of rank amongst your personal achievements to lift the NPL Victoria title with the Cannons?
Yeah, it would be massive. I mean, like when I first came, my first full year back after being a professional was at South, and we were, when I say fortunate enough, we were good enough and fortunate enough to win it, and it was super special. We had such a great bunch of guys, and obviously CT and the rest of the coaching staff, but this one's a little bit different. This one's a little bit more personal for me. My family has a lot of connections to Oakleigh and the club and the people around the club, and it feels like a second home for me. I know so many of the older people, so many of the sponsors. This club's been, when I say starved of a championship, it's been so close so many times, and to be part of a team that finally brings that to the great people of the club, the sponsors, the president, everyone, it would mean a lot. I mean, and obviously the playing group itself, we're such a tight bunch of boys, and we've been through so much this year, but that aside, to do it for the club would be amazing, because we've seen this year, particularly in all the massive games we've played, just how much it means to these people, and it'd be amazing if we can bring them that premiership that they deserve.
The other element of City Vista, of course, is with the amount of people you expect to turn up. Everyone's going to be packed in quite tight. People will be against the fence, and obviously we all enjoyed seeing you a few weeks ago have some good back and forth with Heidelberg. There's been the stuff in the penalty shootout with South fans before. Are you looking forward to the chance to, in such a big game, because we know you're someone who can, maybe have that conversation but then also be a top pro on the pitch. You can do both at the same time. Some people can't. Are you looking forward to the chance to have a bit of a witty repartee during the big dance?
Yeah, it's one of my favourite pastimes. So I'm glad that everyone will be jam-packed as tight as they can. And I love when people yell and scream and say stuff to me, because, I'm someone who'll give it back. I don't really mind. And sometimes it takes people by shock a little bit that someone's actually saying something back to them. But it spurs me on. I use it as motivation. It doesn't distract me from the game at all. It actually fuels me. So if they're quiet, it's a little bit boring for me. So I feel like if they try and get stuck into me, it spurs me on a little bit. So I'm looking forward to it. Like I said, I haven't played there before, so if they're up against the fence and giving me their best, I'll be there. I'll be looking forward to it.
Well, Matt, we'll let you go. We'll let you get to training for tonight. Obviously, you know, good luck for Sunday. Good luck for next Wednesday as well against MacArthur. I mean, we've spoken so much about the grand final, but of course, there still is that semi-final against MacArthur on Wednesday where you have that opportunity to go into another cup final and take home what would be another piece of silverware potentially. So, again, good luck for both games. Should be an absolute cracker.
Thanks so much, guys. Appreciate it.